Hi, I'm Shannon, and today I'm going to be showing you the cast on for my mystery knit along for Lucky. I've got my needles here, size 5s. I'm just going to be casting on with some scrap yarn today. And so these guys are going to be for row 1. I'll show you row 1 in this video as well, but we don't need them until row 1, so I'm going to set those guys aside for right now. So we're going to be using a Judy's Magic cast on, which is normally used for socks or something else that's done in the round. We're going to be actually working it flat, so that's a little bit different, which is why I wanted to go ahead and do the video. So to get started, you want to hold your needles like this. And so I'm going to call this one my bottom needle and this one my top needle. So this one's closest to me and this one's further away. And then for your yarn, you want to get about a yard's worth of tail going with your yarn. So I've got a nice long amount right there because we're going to be casting on, well, it'll be a total of 100 stitches, 50 per needle. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to take the tail side and put it in the middle and then put it over that top needle. Then I'm going to twist those around the needle and hold it similar to the way you would for a long tail cast on. So that's our first stitch right there. Now, I've got a stitch on my top needle. I need to get a stitch onto my bottom needle. So to do that, it's going to seem backwards, but to get a stitch on my bottom needle, I'm going to bring my needles to the top and then take that yarn and slide it right in between. So now from here, there's two things you can do. You can count this as 2 stitches, or I tend to go a little bit fast when I cast these on. So I like to count 1 stitch on each needle as 1. So I'm going to count this as 1. So now I've got one on my bottom needle. I need to come back to the top. So I'm going to go to the bottom and the same thing, wrap it around and slide it in between the needles. Well, sometimes those needles don't like to cooperate. Okay, just around. And there we go. Now I'm going to go back up and in between. So I'm going to count that as 2. Down and in between, up and in between, down and in between, up and in between. So now if you have to set this down for some reason, when you pick it back up, remember, you're holding it like this. So whatever's on the bottom, you need one on the top, or if there's one on the top, then you need one on the bottom. So that kind of helps figuring it out. Now, if you set it down and forget which way you're supposed to hold the yarn, wherever this last loop is coming from, you can kind of see that it's already kind of wanting to gravitate towards the other side there. And so that way you can pick it back up and keep going. So I'm going to go ahead and take a pause right here and go ahead and get my 50 stitches onto each needle, or 100 stitches total, and then I'll be back to show you how to do the first row. Okay, I'm back, and you can see that I've got all of my stitches on my needles now. I've got 50 on each side. Now, normally when working with Judy's Magic cast on, you would flip your needles around this way and pull this bottom needle out and work across this row. Well, Lucky is a little bit different. It's, like I said, we're going to be working it flat instead of in the round. And the other difference is that this is going to be a garter stitch piece. So what we want to do is flip this over. So we've got this ridge right here, kind of our purl bumps right there that we're going to be working on. So I'm going to take my tail and I'm just going to hold it down along this ridge here. And I'm going to pull this bottom needle through and get my yarn going in the right place here, right in between there. So normally when you do a Judy's Magic cast on, your second row has twisted stitches, but since we're doing it backwards, our first row is going to have our twisted stitches. Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. You can see that the yarn is coming over from left to right instead of the other way around. So, so I'm going to go ahead, and these are all going to be knit through the back. Like this. So I'm going to take another quick pause. Not with my yarn, but I'm going to pause the video for just a second, and I'm going to get almost to the end of this. I want to stop before I knit my very last stitch. So I want to leave one stitch on my left hand needle. So I will be back in just a moment. Okay, back again. So I've gone ahead and I've knit through the back loop for 49 of my 50 stitches. I've still got my one left here. And so in the instructions, it says to place a marker. So I'm going to grab one of these guys from over here and just slide them right on there. And then I'm going to take this stitch and I'm going to knit front and back. And okay, so we've been knitting through the back loop for all the other ones. So why don't we knit back then front? Well, because it's really not going to be seen, and it's much easier just to go ahead and do a knit in the front and then the back. And it also helps kind of tighten up. You saw where it was a little loose right here. That helps tighten that up a little bit. So there's the first half of that row. I'm going to pull my needle up here if it cooperates with me. Pull my other needle out and flip it around. And so now I'm ready for the second half of this row. And so now this first stitch, I'm going to knit front and back. And slide it off. And then I'm going to put my other marker right there. So that little section between the markers is where we're going to have our first several increases. That's the only place that we're going to be doing increasing stitches for the first little bit. And so then you just knit all the way across, and you'll have this counts for your first 2 rows of Lucky. So I'm going to go ahead and end this particular video here, and I'm going to be back with another video, and you'll get this at the same time for the first clue of Lucky. And so the second video is going to show you how to get started with that short row shaping and kind of how I have the pattern written for that. So I'm going to finish my row up here, and then I'll see you in the next video to start our short rows.